Thank you, sir, for joining us. It's an honor to have you here today as our esteemed guest. And I would like to start our conversation. I would like to ask first question. Uh, how can public policy play a pivotal role in addressing seismic risk and building resilience in the livelihood of communities in the Eastern Himalaya?
Thank you for that question. Public policy is essential to address seismic risk in the region. In fact, there is a United Nations framework called the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction that identifies four different priorities. The first one is understanding risk, and the second one is strengthening risk governance. So that kind of tells you how important public policy is to address seismic risk. And public policy in that sense should be based on evidence-based risk models that gives us a better insight about risk that our communities and our people are facing in the face of earthquakes. In this case, it could be other kinds of hazard that the risk is coming from. But in general, understanding disaster risk is the first step towards ensuring that risk could be reduced through informed public policy, and that can drive risk reduction strategies, mitigation efforts, so that once a big event happens, the community is well equipped to respond to that and come back stronger. And that is what we mean by resilience. Building resilience meaning that the communities can face the event and then come back stronger. So that's the role of public policy that can drive different kinds of change in terms of infrastructure planning, in terms of building capacities within our communities, and also creating awareness among our population about the risk that they're facing.
Yeah, indeed. By identifying the problem risk and by involving communities and by capacitizing their communities, local communities, we can mitigate a risk. And I would like to move on second question. What strategies would you recommend to integrate seismic resilience into sustainable development model, ensuring long-term security for vulnerable population?
Yeah, thanks. I think both of those aspects go hand in hand. Seismic resilience, I would kind of use disaster resilience instead, because seismic resilience is context specific. If you're in a earthquake prone area, then seismic risk is important. But then that could be depending on where you are in the world. The risk, it could be coming from floods, drought, cyclones, and whatnot. But I think the overarching idea is still the same. And I would say sustainable development and disaster resilience go hand in hand. So that's why there are a lot of overlaps between the Sendai framework that I mentioned and the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. There are a few overlaps, and that is because those things are interlinked. If we want to see sustainable development, we want lack of disruptions from those black swan events that can disrupt the lives and livelihoods of our communities. In terms of strategies, first and foremost, I think it goes back to understanding risk, and that could be done through better understanding the context of the hazard in that particular geographical location. Uh, Science-based data collection, geospatial data collection, those are very state-of-the-art tools that could inform us about the hazards that our communities are facing. So I would say um, good data on hazard will provide us insights on what the impacts could be for those big events. The second could be informing or devising public policy that is based on state of the art data, and which addresses risk reduction strategies, risk mitigation strategies, and also um, building capacities within our communities, which is kind of the same thing that I said for the earlier question. And the third, I think there is, yeah, like also in terms of specific to seismic resilience, I would say devising better building codes, because all our the infrastructure that we build are regulated. So if we have good building codes that regulate the construction of our new buildings, then we can address, at least we can address the risk that are coming from infrastructure from the future. But then there are also regulations that needs to put in place for addressing risk from existing infrastructure. And as infrastructure gets old, as it ages, the vulnerability of those infrastructure also increases. So those are two aspects of infrastructure development where you have to address risk for the older infrastructure and ensure that we are not adding more risk from our future infrastructure. And zoning laws play a critical role in how we plan our urban areas, how we plan our rural areas, and corridors in between. So zoning laws should also be informed through through understanding the risk that that region faces. So those are, in a nutshell, those are a few strategies that I would focus on. I think those are pretty big and pretty generic statements, but I think the nitty gritties of that is context specific, it's location specific, and if we involve the communities that are at the forefront of facing those disasters, um, they can inform what they value, and then uh, we can make that journey together in understanding and addressing that risk.
Yes, sir. And this zoning is important is in building also. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you, sir. Thank you.